Hi folks, and welcome to this build showcase. I was hoping to be making my Crisis video today. Unfortunately, I'm still recovering from a nasty bout of something that knocked me on my ass. So today, I'm doing my best impression of my normal voice to put together a shorter video and focus on my newest hardware purchase and, in my opinion, what might be my ideal laptop. I say might be due to a small bit of uncertainty and a potential bounty to settle the matter, but that's for the end of the video. On that note, what is my ideal laptop and why did I want it? Well, let's get to that after some specs. To stop beating around the bush, let's take a look at the machine in question. Fresh from eBay, we have the Asus ROG GL553V. Released in 2017, it was intended as a mid-tier gaming laptop. While there were a few options you could select, my particular model is sporting an i7-7700HQ, 16GB of DDR4 RAM running at about 2400MHz, and an NVIDIA GTX 1050 with 2GB of VRAM. Additionally, it has a 512GB NVMe boot drive, and while it came with a 1TB 2.5 hard drive, I swapped that out for what else but a 1TB PNY CS900. Finally, and the part that resulted in me hunting and researching for what laptop I'd want for almost a month, a built-in optical drive. Yeah, the whole reason I wanted this specific kind of laptop is because I still have an expansive DVD and Blu-ray library. For a brief window, I wanted to see if I could go for the peak of optical media and was seeking a Blu-ray drive. Unfortunately, to me somewhat ironically, unless I was willing to opt for a Sony Vaio laptop, I would have likely ended up with a 3rd gen i7 instead of a 7th gen. There were also newer ones that theoretically would come with one, but they were professionally oriented with Quadro graphics chips, and given the architecture differences between chips made professional intent and gaming, I figured the minor gap in newer hardware would be overridden by the loss from performance intentions. Of a brief side note, I would have had this video out a couple weeks back had it not been for a few technical hiccups. When I first started testing the laptop, the performance experienced frequent stutters and frame rate drops. Doing some research, I found 3 potential causes. One was a Windows registry setting related to NVIDIA drivers, another was the potential of thermal throttling, and finally there was the last and easiest to settle, the laptop's charger. Addressing them in order, NVIDIA thankfully knew of the issue and had an official option to edit the registry. Second, I cracked open the laptop, gave a healthy blast of compressed air to clean, refreshed the thermal paste, and then reassembled the heat assembly, which was surprisingly easy, and then closed it back up. Finally, I elected to order an OEM charger since the universal one likely couldn't handle the laptop under load, making it switch constantly between full power and efficiency mode. Since I'm not one for patience, I tackled all 3 at the same time. I'm not 100% sure which it was, but the issue did get resolved. With the tech support matters out of the way, I went ahead and installed a bunch of my favorite games to see what I could expect from performance, or so I thought. My initial performance was still abnormally low in some games. Browsing through some settings, I discovered the laptop was withholding the GTX 1050 and forcing everything to run on the integrated graphics. A quick Google search and trip to the NVIDIA control panel later, I was now finally ready to run. I used external camera capture today because I was having issues getting the HDMI port to read, and frankly I don't have the energy to fight this thing more. Plus, it wouldn't affect my intended use of gaming, so let's see what we can expect. Starting off with what seems to be a good CPU stressor, my late game save of Cult of the Lamb would dip into the mid-30s for FPS while in the village, but liked to hover around 70 to 80 once the minions had their tasks all sorted out. In the dungeons and combat, there'd be a moment of around 40 FPS when entering the room, but after about half a second, things always settled back at around 85. Also, the night before I recorded this, I ended up playing for about 3 hours on this laptop. Fair to say, better than adequate for my purposes thus far. Moving away from Dirt 3 to a more intensive racing title, we have Wreckfest. On high settings at the laptop's native 1080p, we'd bottom out around 35 FPS, but most of the time we'd be pushing up against the 60 FPS VSync limit. Mighty impressive for this old 1050 chip and 2GB of VRAM, but then again, I got similar performance from a 2GB GTX 960, so not all that surprising. If I need to scratch the multiplayer itch in TF2, 80 FPS was the low while in control, and 100 was about the average. In third-person death cams and zoomed-out shots while waiting to spawn, it might shrivel to about 55, but those moments didn't really matter. Stable at 90 in the action is better than most would need. Diving into the deep end with the Cyberpunk bench test, this is where I would reach the limits of where I might not want to play this thing as a preferred platform. With lows around 20 and an average of 30, yeah, you could probably play it, but it wouldn't be ideal. Dropping the resolution, though, to about 1280 by 768 increased lows and averages by about 50%, and given the approximately 16-inch screen, it really doesn't look all that different thanks to the relative pixel density. Tweak the settings a bit further, and yeah, this mid-tier gaming laptop from 2017 is still a perfectly adequate option for heavy hitters. But of course, I gotta ask, can it run Crisis? Duh, of course. A mix of low and medium settings at 1080p gave us about 70 FPS, but never seemed to dip south of 60, even with high foliage or explosions. And that might be my ideal gaming laptop. But I say might for one key reason. I said near the start that my preferred laptops come equipped to play physical media, and in spite of hours of searching, this was one of the latest I could find. But I have a request and an offer. I seek aid from my audience. If anyone can point me in the direction of a more current gaming laptop that has a built-in DVD or Blu-ray drive, I'll reward you. Reach out to me at my email on my YouTube homepage and provide me with the information of a brand, model number, and release date. If I can track down and verify the info, I'll reward you with Steam keys from my giveaway list. The ones who provide me with the newest laptop with either a Blu-ray or DVD drive will receive 5 games of their choice from the list below. I look forward to what people can dig up. Now, if you'll excuse me... I'm putting my normal voice back on and passing out for a bit. Hey, thanks for sticking around all the way to the end. Remember that I give away Steam keys with my regular weekly uploads, and all you have to do to enter is leave a comment and have contact info on your YouTube profile. But as always, thanks for watching and keep your head on your shoulders.